Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Praptasya Gurnanavasya Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Joktasya bhaktamsya niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Kridvaiva Trupte Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Bhajato Shadeva Shiradikama Dabayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shri Radhikama Para Madhurya Leela Pratikshana Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayo ratikeli siddhai Jayali virjukti apekshaniya Nikunjayo ratikeli siddhai Jayali virjukti apekshaniya Tatrati dakshar ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shashri Ruktastathava Vyataiva Sarve Sakyadaritena Shamasta Shashi Kintu Prabodja Priyaeva Tasya Vande Gorashi Charanarvindam Vande Gorashi Charanarvindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stubam Tasya Yasya Trisandyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Yasya Trisandyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hariharaya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnav Bhagavata Gita, Hari Guru Vaishnav Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna, Shri Jiva Gopala. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshmana Numan. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Haribo. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhajaka Acharya Suttara Srishimad. His Divine Grace of Bhajana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Vividi Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Shri Guru Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhadra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guru Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Anant Kuj Vaishnavrind Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrind Ki Jai. Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Prema Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavrinavatar Ki Jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai. Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopna Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Braja Bhumi Vrindavan Mathura Ki Jai. The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Maya Purnavadvip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai. Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puridham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Stram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ki Jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladana Naraine. Hiranyakasipo Raksha. Silatanka Nakalaye. Ito Nishinga Parato Nishinga. Jato Jato Jamitato Nishinga. Bhayir Nishinga Rudaye Nishinga. Narasingamadim Sharanam Prapadim. Tabakara Kamalabare Nakao Adabhuta Singha. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanovringa. Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadishare. Jai Jagadishare. Jai Jagadishare. Tabakara Kamalabare Nakam Adabhuta Singha. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanabringa. Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jaya Nishingare 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 Jaya Nishingare Jaya Jaya Narahari Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Prahlad Mara Bhakta Prahlad Shila Prahlad Mara Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Haribo Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pata Sarvignashna Kare Shingare Bhagavan ki Jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Hari Bo Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namaha Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pav Eya Vilasi Radha Krishna Radha Krishna Seva Pav Eya Vilasi যে তোমার শরণ লাং তার বাঞ্ছা পূর্ণ যে তোমার কৃপা করে করতারে বৃন্দাবন বাসী তুমি কৃপা করে বৃন্দাবন বিলাস কুঞ্জে দিয়বা মোরায়া বিলাস কুঞ্জে দি নায়ানে রিবসরা যুগল রূপরাসি আমি নায়ানে রিবসরা যুগল রূপরাসি এই নিবেদন ধার সখী অনুগত করু সেবায়াদি কর দিয়ে কর নিজ দাসী দীন কৃষ্ণ দাস কই এই নামর শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দ প্রেমে সদাই নবাসী শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দ প্রেমে সদাই নবাসী तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमो तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमो जनिकानि सपापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि तानि तानि प्रनसन्ति प्रदक्षिण परे परे यानि कानि सपापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि तानि तानि प्रनसन्ति प्रदक्षिण परे परे यानि कानि सपापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि तानि तानि प्रनसन्ति प्रदक्षिण परे परे Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi, Tulsi Maharani Jaya Brinda Devi, Brinda Devi, Tulsi Maharani Jaya Brinda Devi. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namo. Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namo. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namo. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavadhyams of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chito Darpanam Arjanam Bhavamada Bhagni Vapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudham Nija Sarva Shakti Tatra Vittani Amita Smarane Makaru Durdaivam idrishamiyajani nanuraga Trinadapi sunichena Tarorapi saishnuna Amanina manadena Kirtaniya sadahari Na dhanam na janam na sundarim Kavitam va jagadishakamaye Manishwari Bhavatar bhakti rahaitu tvai Oinanda tanuja kinkaram Paritamam visame bhava buddho Kripaya tava para pankaja Stitaduli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galorashudharaya Vadanam gadagarudaya gira Pulakari chitam vapukada Tavanama grahane bhavisati Jugaitam nimishena Chakrusha pravasaitam Shunyaitam jagat sarvam Govinda Virahename Aslishabha padaratam pinastumam Adarshanad marmahatam karotuva Jatatatava vidadatu lampato Mat pranatastu saivanapara Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauri Tvishaya. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses your heart all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the primary benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested your transcendental energies. They are not hard and fast rule for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower and strong in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other I've fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he sure remains so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything for the use of my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kirstakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. There are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even of understanding. So many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Shivancha Sindhu Devacha Paritanam Pavanabhu Vaishnavi Jai Jai.
Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganya Timirandasya Yena Salakaya Chaksuranjitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Tattvakamaya Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kitamayam Tadati Swabhaktikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Judaha Pachakavahan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupan Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishakha Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namini Shiva Savanavi Dayita Itaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Papa Siddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gorakishoraya Sakshadvairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambhude Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate Jayat Nirbhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhutanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakti Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Mandamatir Gati Matsarva Swapadambujo Radha Madanamodhano Divya Dvindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratna Simhasanastito Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Harsan Venus Swaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneswari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 9 Verse number 36 Itavad eva jijnasyam tatvajignasunatmana anvaya vyatirai kabhyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. Itavat, up to this, eva, certainly, jijnasyam, is to be inquired. Tattva, the absolute truth. Jidnasuna,
jigyasuna,
by the student.
by the student,
Atmana,
atmana,
of the self.
of the self,
Anvaya,
ambaya,
directly.
directly,
Vyatire kabhyam,
yatirekavyam,
indirectly.
indirectly,
Yat,
yat,
whatever.
whatever,
Syat,
syat,
it may be.
it may be,
Sarvatra,
sarvatra,
in all space and time.
in all space and time,
Sarvada,
sarvada,
in all circumstances.
in all circumstances.
Translation: a person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, most certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So we did first and second and third paragraphs. We'll start from the third. The revealed scriptures give directions directly to this end, but because the bewildered living entities are blinded by the glaring reflection in the darkness, they are unable to find the truth of the revealed scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, the whole direction is targeted toward the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. But for want of a bona fide spiritual master in the line of Brahmaji or the direct hearer, Arjuna, there are different distortions of the revealed knowledge by many unauthorized persons who just want to satisfy their own whims. Undoubtedly, the Bhagavad Gita is accepted as one of the most brilliant stars in the horizon of the spiritual sky. Yet, the interpretations of this great book of knowledge have so grossly been distorted that every student of Bhagavad Gita is still in the same darkness of glaring material reflections. Such students are hardly enlightened by the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, practically, the same instruction is imparted as in the 4 prime verses of the Bhagavatam, but due to wrong and fashionable interpretations by unauthorized persons, one cannot reach the ultimate conclusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 1861, it is clearly said, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridese rajuna tistati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantarudrani mayaya. The Lord is situated in the hearts of all living beings as Paramatma, and He is controlling all of them in the material world under this agency of His external energy. Therefore, it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is the supreme controller and that the living entities are controlled by the Lord. In the same Bhagavad Gita 1866, the Lord directs as follows: Manmanabhava mad bhakto Majjajimam namaskuru mam evaisisi satyam te pratijane priyosime. It is clear from this verse of the Bhagavad Gita that the direction of the Lord is that one should be God-minded, a devotee of the Lord, a worshipper of the Lord, and must offer all obeisances unto Lord Krishna. By doing so, by so doing, the devotee will undoubtedly go back to Godhead, back to home. Indirectly, it is said that the whole Vedic social construction of human society is so made that everyone acts as a part and parcel of the complete body of the Lord. The intelligent class of men, or the Brahmanas, are situated on the face of the Lord. The administrative class of men, the Kshatriyas, are situated on the arms of the Lord. The productive class of men, the Vaishyas, are situated on the belt of the Lord. And the laborer class of men, the Sudras, are situated on the legs of the Lord. Therefore, the complete social construction is the body of the Lord, and all the parts of the body, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Sudras, are meant to serve the Lord's whole body conjointly. Otherwise, the parts become unfit to be coordinated with the supreme consciousness of oneness. Universal consciousness is factually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that alone can ensure total perfection. Therefore, even the great scientists, the great philosophers, the great mental speculators, the great politicians, the great industrialists, the great social reformers, etc., can give any relief, cannot give any relief to the restless society of the material world, because they do not know the secret of success as mentioned in this verse of the Bhagavatam, namely that one must know the mystery of Bhakti Yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:15 also it is said, Namam diskritinamudha prapadyante naradama mayaya prata jnana asaram bhavam asritaha. Because the so-called great leaders of human society are ignorant of this great knowledge of Bhakti Yoga and are always engaged in ignoble acts of sense gratification, bewildered by the external energy of the Lord, they are stubborn rebels against the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they never agree to surrender unto Him because they are fools, miscreants, and the lowest type of human beings. Such faithless non-believers may be highly educated in the material sense of the term, but factually they are the greatest fools of the world, because by the influence of the external material nature, all their so-called acquisitions of knowledge has been made null and void. Therefore, all advancement of knowledge in the present context of things is being missed by cats and dogs fighting with one another for sense gratification, and all acquisition of knowledge in science, philosophy, fine arts, nationalism, economic development, religion, and great activities are being spoiled by being used as dresses for dead men. There is no utility in the dresses used for covering a coffin of a dead body, save getting false applause from the ignorant public. The Srimad Bhagavatam therefore says again and again that without attainment of the status of Bhakti Yoga, all the activities of human society are to be considered absolute failures only. It is said, Parabhavas tavad abodhajato yavana jijnas sata atmatatvam yavat kriyas tavad idam manovai karmatmakam yena sarira bandha. Bhagavatam 5.5.5. As long as one is blind to inquiring after self-realization, all material activities, however great they may be, are all different kinds of defeat, because the aim of human life is not fulfilled by such unwanted and profitless activities. The function of the human body is to attain freedom from material bondage, but as long as one is fully absorbed in material activities, his mind will be overwhelmed in the whirlpool of matter, and thus he will continue to be encaged in material bodies life after life. Wow, what an amazing statement by Prabhupada. Evam mana karmavasam prayunkte avidya yatmani upadhyamane pratir na yavan mai vasudeve namuchyate deha yogina tavat. Bhagavatam 5.5.6. If one's mind, it is one's mind that generates different kinds of bodies for suffering different kinds of material pangs. Therefore, as long as the mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, the mind is understood to be absorbed in nescience or ignorance, and thus one is sure to be subjected to material bondage in different bodies again and again, until one develops a transcendental love for Godhead, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person, to become absorbed in the transcendental name, quality, form, and activities of the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, means to change the temper of the mind from matter to absolute knowledge, which leads one to the path of absolute realization and thus frees one from the bondage of material contact and engagements in different material bodies. Srila Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada, therefore, comments on the words Sarvatra Samvada in the sense that the principles of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service to the Lord are apt in all circumstances. In other words, they're relevant in all circumstances. That is, Bhakti Yoga is recommended in all revealed scriptures. It is performed by all authorities. It is important in all places. It is useful in all causes and effects, etc. As far as all the revealed scriptures are concerned, he quotes from the Skanda Purana on the topics of Brahma and Narada as follows. Samsare smin mahagore janma mrityu samakule pujanam vasyadevasya triham shradha tri tarakam vadibihi smritam. In the material world, which is full of darkness and dangers, combined with birth and death, and full of different anxieties, the only way to get out of the great entanglement is to accept loving transcendental devotional service to Lord Vasudeva. This is accepted by all classes of philosophers. Srila Jiva Goswami also quotes another common passage, which is found in three Puranas, namely the Padma Purana, Skanda Purana, and Linga Purana. It runs as follows. Alodhya sarvasastrani vicharya cha puna puna idamekam sunispanam dhyeyo narayana sada. By scrutinizingly reviewing all the revealed scriptures and judging them again and again, it is now concluded that Lord Narayana is the supreme absolute truth, and thus he alone should be worshipped. The same truth is also indirectly described in the Garuda Purana as follows. Param gato pi vedanam sarva sastrartha vedyapi yona sarvesware bhaktas tam vidyat purushad danam. Even though one may have gone to the other side of all the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he must be considered the lowest of mankind. Similarly, it is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12, indirectly as follows. Yasyasya bhaktir bhagavat akinchana sarvar gunais tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratanasati dhavato bai. One who has unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Personality Godhead must have all the good qualities of the demigods, and contrarily, one who is not a devotee of the Lord must be hovering in the darkness of mental speculation, and thus must be engaged in material impermanence. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.18 says, Sabda Brahmani Nisnato Na Nisiddhayat Pare Yadi Gramas Tasya Shrama Palo He Adenham Eva Rakshata. One may be well versed in all the transcendental literature of the Vedas, but if he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast, or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. Similarly, the liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone, even the women, the Sudras, the forest tribes, or any other living beings born in sinful conditions. Te vai vidant atitaranti chadeva mayam stri sudrahuna sabara apipapa jivaha yad adbhuta krama parayana silasikas siksas tirya jana apikimu shruta dharana ye. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.46. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be elevated, then what to speak of the highest, who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performers of the service. Therefore, the devotional service to the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. This is confirmed in the Garuda Purana as follows. Kita pakshi mriganam cha haro sanyasta chetasam urdvam eva gatim manye kim punar gyaninam nrinam. Even the worms, birds, and beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfection of life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So what to speak of the philosophers amongst the human beings? Therefore, there is no need to seek properly qualified candidates for discharging devotional service to the Lord. Let them be either well-behaved or ill-trained. Let them be either learned or fools. Let them be either grossly attached or in the renounced order of life. Let them be liberated souls or desirous of salvation. Let them be inexpert in the discharge of devotional service or expert in the same. All of them can be elevated to the supreme position by discharging devotional service under the proper guidance. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.30 and 32 as follows. Apichet Sudurachara Bhajante Mam Ananyabhag Samyak Eva Samantavya Samyak Vyavasito Hisaha Mam Hi Partavya Pasritya Yepi Syu Papayunaha Striya Vaishas Tatas Sudras Tipiyanti Param Gatim. Even if a person is fully addicted to all sorts of sinful activities, if he happens to be engaged in a loving service, a loving transcendental service to the Lord under proper guidance, he is to be considered the most perfect holy man without a doubt. And thus any person, whatsoever and whosoever he or she may be, even the fallen woman, the less intelligent laborer, the dull mercantile man, or even a man lower than all these, can attain the highest perfection of life by going back home, back to Godhead, provided he or she takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in all earnestness. This sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfection stage of life, and unless and until such real earnestness is aroused, there is a difference between the cleanliness or uncleanliness learning or non-learning in the material estimation. Fire is always fire, and thus if someone touches the fire knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will act in its own way without discrimination. The principle is Harir Harati Papani Dustachitara Api Samrita. The all-powerful Lord can purify the devotees of all kinds of sinful reactions, just as the sun can sterilize all sorts of infections by the powerful rays. Attraction for material enjoyment cannot act upon a pure devotee of the Lord. There are hundreds and thousands of aphorisms in the revealed scriptures. Atmaramas chamunayo, even the self-realized souls are also attracted by the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva Parayana. Simply by hearing and chanting, one becomes a great devotee of Lord Vasudeva. Na chalati bhagavat padara vindal lavan im isardham api savaishnavagriya. A person who does not move from the lotus feet of the Lord even for a moment or a second is to be considered the greatest of all Vaishnavas. Bhagavat Parasadat tam prapte mat sevaya pratitam te. The pure devotee, the pure devotees are convinced of attaining the association of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are always engaged in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord. Therefore, in all continents, in all planets, in all universes, devotional service to the Lord, or bhakti yoga, is current, and that is the statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam and allied scriptures. Everywhere means in every part of the creation of the Lord can be served by all the senses, or even simply by the mind. The South Indian Brahmanas who served the Lord simply on the strength of his mind also factually realized the Lord. Success is guaranteed for a devotee who fully engages any of his senses in the mode of devotional service. The Lord can be served by any ingredient, even the most common commodity, a flower, a leaf, a fruit, or a little water, which are available in any part of the universe and without cost. And thus the Lord is served universally by the universal entities. He can be served simply by hearing. He can be served simply by chanting or reading about his activities. He can be served simply by adoring him and accepting him. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There's still about 4.5 pages. So we'll cover that tomorrow. What we just covered now is all nectar. And this is further explained by Kapila Deva in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says, Srimad Bhagavatam, purifying the mind for self-realization. And where is this? Let's see. It's in the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. Okay, so anyway, text 15. Cheta klav asya bandaya muktaye chatmano matam gunesu shaktam bandaya ratam va pumsi muktaye. And Kapila Dev says, the stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. This is a very nice verse. And in the purport, it says, there is a distinction here between Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness. Gunesu, or Maya consciousness, involves attachment to the three material modes of nature, under which one works sometimes in goodness, knowledge, sometimes in passion, and sometimes in ignorance. These different qualities, these different qualitative activities, with the central attachment for material enjoyment, are the cause of one's conditional life. When the same Cheta, or consciousness, is transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or when one becomes Krishna conscious, he is on the path of liberation. And text 16 says, Aham mama biman otai kama loba dibir malai vitam yada manas shudam adukam asukam samam. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of material happiness and distress. So, this is a monumental verse, and now we're going to hear a similarly monumental purport by Srila Prabhupada to this amazing verse by Kapila Dev, who's an incarnation of Krishna. So, all this information, what's the goal of all this information? Well, We heard it in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse 36. This whole purport is about the way we can become liberated from the cycle of birth and death, go back to Godhead. It all depends on transferring our consciousness, as it says in this verse, transferring our consciousness from sense gratification to pleasing the senses of Krishna. That's the whole message right there. If we do that, then we engage in the culture of Krishna consciousness. What is the culture of Krishna consciousness? It's how we do things. And how do we do things in Krishna consciousness? We go to sleep early and we wake up early. We don't eat too much, we don't eat too little. We don't sleep too much, we don't sleep too little. But we are regulated. That's the secret, to be regulated, so that we have time to hear about Krishna and his transcendental pastimes, and we have time to chant our rounds, minimum 16 good rounds. This is the perfection of Krishna conscious lifestyle. And of course, the devotees have to have time to chant their rounds, have to have time to hear on a regular basis Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada says in this purport. Let me read the verse again. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. So this I, me, and mine syndrome, aham mameti, is the symptom of the sense gratifiers. They become attached to their possessions, and they can't let go of them, and they use everything this in society for attaining sustained sense gratification, and they on that path they develop lust and greed, and from the modes of passion and ignorance. Tadarajas tamo bhavo kamaloba dayasche cheta itaranavatam stitvam sattve prasidati. So this lust and greed, and of course anger also evolves from that. It's very dangerous. And therefore it says, by development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice or greed are diminished. So, development of devotional service, that's what we're really interested in. That is real education. That is real knowledge. So Prabhupada says, kama and lobha, desire or lust and greed, are symptoms of material existence. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, his mind and consciousness also become freed and attain their original state. Mind and consciousness and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. So what Prabhupada has given us, and what he's continuing to over and over again emphasize, is the process of purification. That's the whole gist of spiritual life, to become purified of these negative feelings and desires and hankerings, and transfer that thinking and willing and feeling to pleasing Krishna through devotional service. If we can do this, our life changes in a very dramatic way from a life of suffering to a life of genuine transcendental happiness. But on the way, we give up attachment to everything that's an obstacle to transcendental happiness. And that is the I, me, and mine syndrome, and the idea of I am the possessor, I am the enjoyer. No, Krishna is the possessor, Krishna is the enjoyer. But if we engage in Krishna's service, we engage also in his transcendental happiness and transcendental peace and transcendental affection and love. So by becoming a cooperator with Krishna, we stop being an operator or agent of Maya, and we transfer all our attention to Krishna. So mind and consciousness and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. Do you know anyone is transcendental to material happiness and distress? Everybody is. All the time. I hear it from the devotees, and I hear it from the non-devotees. Everyone is disturbed by happiness and distress. But the devotee becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga enables one to transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system, as explained in the Narada Pancharatra. One's mind and senses should be purified. Sarvapadi vinirmuttam tatparatvena nirmalam Kena Hrishikesa Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. This is the Narada Pancharatra, which says, as explained in the Narada Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified. Tat paratvena nirmalam. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service to the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind vacant. That's what the Mayavadis try to do. That's their tribe, their culture. That's their solution. Just make the mind zero. But that's not possible. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try and make the mind vacant or void, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified, and there is no chance that material desire and greed will enter. Wow. This is the solution to all the problems of life. Our mind is our friend, and our mind is our enemy. If it is cleansed, it is a friend. And if it is dirty, we contact material diseases. Wow. We contact material diseases, Prabhupada says. If we keep ourselves clean, pure, we will not be contaminated. According to Vedic civilization, one has to cleanse himself externally 3 times daily. Once in the morning, again at noon, and again in the evening. And also, Prabhupada has said that we should chant our Gayatri mantra in the morning, at noon, and in the evening, or 3 times a day. So a Brahmana bathes 3 times a day, chants his Gayatri mantra 3 times a day, also wakes up very early in the morning and chants his rounds, minimum 16 rounds. Prabhupada made that concession. It should, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur emphasized 64 rounds a day. Prabhupada, out of his mercy, reduced it to 16 a day for us. And even we have difficulty doing the 16. So we should get real serious about becoming very regulated in our lives, in eating, sleeping, and this mating and defending. We should become very regulated and only do it to the extent that Krishna permits or suggests. Now, you can just eat so much, you can just mate so much, you can just sleep so much, you can just work so much. All these things have to be regulated. And if we do, then we become very happy and we become successful. This is the secret of success in spiritual life, this regulation and following strictly the culture of Krishna consciousness. So then he says, conditional life means that the mind is covered with dirty things, and this is our disease. When we are in the lower modes of tamo guna and rajo guna, these dirty things are very prominent. One has to raise himself to the mode of sattva, goodness, by the process of sankirtan and shravana. There it is. Sankirtan and shravana. This is the secret. So, one has to hear Krishna Katha. Krishna is within everyone's heart. The individual soul is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna wants the individual soul to turn to him. Unfortunately, the conditioned soul is attached to material enjoyment, and this is the cause of his bondage to birth, death, old age, and disease. He is so foolish that he does not take into consideration that these miseries are repeated. He is like an ass that belongs to a washerman who loads him down with heavy clothes for a few morsels of grass, and the ass has to carry heavy loads all day, although not a single piece of clothing belongs to him. This is the way of the karmis. They may become big multimillionaires, but they are just like asses, working hard day and night. Regardless of how much money they may have, their stomachs can only hold so much, and they require only 6 feet of space to sleep. Nonetheless, these big karmis are thinking themselves very important. They think, without me, all the members of my nation will die. Let me work day and night to the point of death. People are thinking, I belong to this family, this nation, this community, I have this duty or that duty, and so on. People do not know that these are all false designations. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore enjoins or recommends or insists, Jivera Swarupahaya Krishnera Nityadasa. Our actual position is that of an eternal servants of Krishna. We are mistakenly thinking that we are servants of a family or nation, but this is due to ignorance, tamoguna. However, we can attain the platform of sattvaguna by following the instructions given in Bhagavad Gita. Hearing Krishna Katha, topics about Krishna, clears all the dirty things from the mind. Also, if we chant and dance, these dirty things will be wiped away. The mind is the cause of bondage, and the mind is the cause of liberation. When it is dirty, it brings about bondage. In conditional life, we take birth, remain for some time, and enjoy or suffer. But really, there is no question of enjoyment. There is only suffering. When we die, we have to give up the body and then take on another body. We immediately enter the womb of another mother, stay for 9 months or so, and then come out. Then a new chapter of life begins. This is conditioned life, and it goes on again and again and again. In this way, we undergo the tribulations of birth, old age, disease, and death. The dogs and cats cannot understand this process, but we can understand it in human life through the Vedic literatures. If we don't take advantage of these literatures, all our education is for nothing. So, this is a powerful statement by Prabhupada, and it continues. I haven't even read half of it yet. based on this verse by Kapila Muni. So we should take these statements very seriously. And the Narada Pancharatra says, Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. So there you go. This Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam, becoming free from all the upadis, all the false identifications of the self. And so Tatparat Vina Nirmalam, it puts an end to all these false things. And then Hrishi Kena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir, when we engage all the senses in the spirit, in the service of the Lord, there are two things that happen. One gets rid of all the upadis, and simply by being engaged in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. So, this is real knowledge. This is real education. This is real life. Whatever we are doing that's foreign to this culture should be stopped immediately, as soon as possible. Just like I did a program at someone's house in the beginning, January 1st, and I know this person very well, and he has what's called a meat business, right? So what's a meat business? It's called Subway. So and in front of all the people that were there, which were all his family members, I told him point blank, stop your Subway immediately, because you're going to have very, very negative results by this. Stop it immediately, as soon as possible. Sell that store, stop it. Don't be engaged in any type of meat business. And after that, he told me that recently he had a heart attack and almost died. And he's still relatively young. So, some people don't like listening to things like this. In fact, some people specifically have stated in the past, oh, I don't want to hear Hari Vilas's lectures. Every time he says, don't eat meat, don't eat meat, don't eat meat. I don't want to hear this all the time, don't eat meat. You know, can't he say something else? Well, yeah, we say a lot of other things, but if someone is eating meat and continues to eat meat and listening to the classes, there's something wrong. There's a disconnect there, right? So, therefore, we have to repeat these things until it enters into the mind that this is the most dangerous thing you can do in Kali Yuga, is to be a meat eater. You know, if you want to ruin your life and ruin the life of others, do that. But if you want to have a fruitful life, then stop it right away. There's this other person I know. This is many years ago. He told me that he had a 7-Eleven shop. You know, I told him, get out of that business as soon as possible. Why? Because 7-Eleven, they sell gasoline, and they sell meat, and they sell liquor, and they sell cigarettes, and they sell lottery tickets, and sometimes they have these girly magazines. You know, it's a very bad business for devotees. And even though you can make money, but it's not worth it, because all the karma you produce is going to basically eliminate all the material benefits you're getting. So, therefore, I told him, get out of that business as soon as possible. He took my advice. And he's very happy. He and his wife were very happy. He went into IT, then he went into real estate, and now he's into house repairs and things like that. So he got out of it, and he's still making money, but without all that heavy karmic debt based on lottery, gambling, meat, intoxication, and all kinds of illicit things. Haribol. So we'll continue this tomorrow. Are there any questions? This is a very, very, let's say, heavy topic, because Prabhupada is not mincing his words. He's being very, very direct. Go ahead.
I was curious about regulation.
This is your question?
My question,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
In my job, I have to use computer-based technology and juggle a series of tasks. And I was reading an article the other day that a lot of times people who use a lot of technology are constantly like hyperlinking to the next thing, and they have like this hyperactive mind. And when they disconnect, they're like, how do I live without my Twitter, without my this, without my that? So would regulation also include simplicity, not just cleanliness and being very specific about how you use your time, but simplicity and disconnecting from these gadgets?
Well, you have to understand that these gadgets called computers are based on binary technology. You know what that means? 10, 10, 10, right? So obviously, it programs your mind not to be able to focus on one thing. Binary means two things, right? So, but Vedic knowledge is based on monary technology. Therefore, we say Om. Om is, of course, impersonal representation of Krishna, but it's connected to Krishna. The actual meaning of Om is, yes, Krishna, I will do what you want me to do. Right? So there's a difference between the technologies. The computer technology is binary, and therefore it is by nature taking your mind away from one thing and mixing it with two things all the time. And those two things can always differ. Whereas Krishna consciousness is one thing, and that's Krishna, focusing the mind on Krishna 24 hours a day. So if you understand these things, see, why am I explaining this? Because you have to understand the difference between binary technology and one technology. So therefore, you're forced to use the technology, but you have to understand, just like you might have a shop where you sell reptiles, which includes snakes, right? So you have to handle those reptiles all the time. But you know how dangerous they are. They can kill you. So you're extremely careful, and you're expert in how to handle them. Even the experts sometimes get bitten and die, right? But therefore, you have to understand you're dealing with a dangerous technology that is purposely trying to take your mind away from Krishna and spread it out to 10, 10, 10, 10, and many different types of two things. You know, there's news and there's politics, and then there's mundane happiness and illicit sex, and you know, all these binary things will take your mind away from Krishna. So therefore, if you do the job understanding the pitfalls involved and being extremely careful not to let it take you away from Krishna. And the proof is the result of that job, which means there's going to be some money in this thing, and also contacts, and so you should learn how to contact Bill Gates's nonprofit to to the temple of Northwest Share, right? You should find out ways to do that, right? And you should also, use the money in Krishna's service so that you're not contaminated by it. And you're doing that for the most part, but you can try and evolve this understanding that nonprofit or that charitable organization, see if it can help one of our projects, right? That would be a research you could do. That way you're not going to be influenced by that technology that is planned to take your mind away from one thing and spread it out into infinite number of two things. Okay? Any other questions? So you have a purpose now. You have a purpose. One is you use the fruit of the work to support Krishna, and number two is see if that whole let's say charity can help Krishna also. Two-pronged purposes to achieve. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What time is it?
7:12 on my clock.
Okay, well, we'll continue this tomorrow.